Hey fans of NABU, I'm here again. It's Leo Binkowski. This is my NABU t-shirt. Yes, it's vintage from 40 years ago. We're going to get to that in a second, but what I want to do is show you what I've been doing and some of the disappointment that I've had. So, this morning I was digging in the basement and I saw this guy from behind and I went, all right, another cab serve system, we win, right? Then I noticed that it was completely missing its controller board and the actual hard disk. I went, bummer. But it did have the floppy drive, and that gave me a kind of an idea, which was to turn this on, connect it to the floppy cable there, directly, all the way to cab serve system, and try to get it to boot. So to that end, I got it kind of going, but this fan works, but listen to that jet engine go. By the way, that's how loud they were when we used them. So we had that noise all day long. If everybody's wondering why I had a Walkman, well, there's one of the reasons. But anyway, I hooked it up to this cab serve system. Oh, by the way, you notice I'm in a different spot than the kitchen today, mostly because my wife has vacated this table, and then we have our kitchen table back. But so this is sitting in the living room, and I'm using it, and somebody else is seeing what I'm up to. That's Sparky, our cat. And he's heard the jet engine start, so he's back again because he likes that noise. So anyway, I hooked it up to this, and let me just, I think the TV's already on, and I'm going to turn on this NABU. Now this NABU's fan is not going, so that's another issue, and that's got to, but it does go on. So let's just get it to do something. I don't think that guy's on. There we go. Now, if you notice, because I don't have an adapter connector, it actually gave me just options 2 or 3. This shows you that, and it's ROM version 14, so I'm going to be dumping this ROM and giving it to everybody who wants it very soon. But first, I want you to notice something about it. If you don't have an adapter, then the options just start disappearing. If I had an adapter and no floppy disk, then it would say 1 and 3. In this case, it does 2 and 3. Now, it's on and it's going and the NABU is going, and I can press 2 for the floppy disk, and I don't have anything in there. Let's see, but the light does turn on. Wonderful. So I tried what I consider to be a spare floppy, and I tried that in it, and I'm trying the 2 again, and it does about the same thing. But watch what happens on the screen here. Whoops. Boot error. I'll go back a bit. Boot error. Now the light goes on, but I don't hear the motor spinning. Now, granted, this jet engine going right beside it doesn't help. It's very hard for me to put one ear on one side and have that guy basically blasting in my ear. But I don't think it's spinning, so it needs work. So that's kind of a bummer, which means that I can't look at what's on the disk and I can't boot CPM, so I can't find out whether that CPM disk, I'm going to turn this off now, whether this CPM disk, which is surplus and clearly marked and has a write protect on it, so it probably did work. I can't be sure that it's going to ever work or what. Santo, this is for you. I'm sending you this floppy in the mail. If you manage to get it to boot, wonderful. Right? Make copies, do whatever you want. If not, then we'll try other things, as we discussed. I'm going to turn off the NABU because its fan is not going and get rid of this poltergeist screen that's going on here. And I wanted to show you something else. As I said, it was a disappointing day. And I'm going to go a little bit down here. This is my development machine. This is the one that was marked host. And funny story that I remembered. I think Tim Ranger was the one that gave me this one. Tim Ranger was bilingual completely, and still is probably. But basically, he said to me, "You should just rename it Ossi," which in French means is a curse word, because I used to curse it all the time whenever anything would crash, when I run a program and it would die. But that was usually my fault. I couldn't blame the machine. This particular machine, and I refer to it as she. This was my girlfriend from like early 1983 till 1985. While I did casually date, that wasn't a problem. I didn't actually have a relationship with anybody but this girl here. Very, very sad. I can't get it to go. I can get the power light to go on. The fan is on, but it is not showing the boot screen. I don't know what's wrong with it, but somebody's going to have to deal with it, and I don't have time. But this is the one I want to keep. This one should stay with me, and it actually is nice because it has RS-232 option cards, which somebody wants me to talk about, and I'll get to that. A hard disk controller, well, actually a hard disk interface, more likely. The hard disk controller is inside the CabServe system. Another RS-232 option card, and a floppy disk controller that uses the DB25, which is the high density controller. Now, the other thing about this is that if you noticed in the other one, we daisy chained the ribbon cables together. This was a first version of a NABU, and it didn't have the daisy chaining. And as you can see, that made the ribbon cables do all kinds of bad positioning and bending and move the card. See, that's how it pushes the card up. That kind of sucks. So that's why the daisy chaining interface was made. And it still had a weird bend on the top of the, when you push but basically it made everything fit very well and seat very well. And for that reason, I liked it. So I really want to get this guy, or this girl, going again, because I would really like to see her boot off our new NABU RetroNet. See, one more thing. And yet, another thing, like Steve Jobs used to say, I found this guy, which isn't anything like a NABU, but you can see the amount of dust on it. So this guy I'm going to get rid of too, because it's not useful for me. So somebody wants the Intel Play QX3 and wants to clean it up and use it. It probably does work. It was very, very simple. You can have it. This I wanted to show. So there are 4 eras to NABU from my point of view, kind of like Jurassic eras. The first era is when we had NABU Manufacturing Corp. You've seen that in the logos and the boxes and other people's videos and even my videos. Then there's what I call the NABU Network, which is when we marketed the consumer service. We had a good pile of titles by that point, a good pile of educational stuff and business stuff, and we launched. We continued making titles and that kind of stuff after that. So that's the NABU Network period, was when I more or less, not shortly after I got my development machine, and we started delivering PCs to consumers in the home. I think the first year we had like 15,000 out in Ottawa. So it's a pretty decent penetration. We also did it in Alexandria, Virginia, and there was a place in Japan as well as test sites. But the Alexandria, Virginia was kind of an affluent suburb of Washington, D.C., and that was just to sort of get it on the minds of people in the political spectrum. And as a matter of fact, a little bit of trivia, Tom Wheeler, who was CEO of NABU at one point, became chair of the FCC for many years when Obama was president. So just a little bit of trivia there. But so if you notice, there's 2 joysticks. One joystick is the NABU joystick, the one that we shipped with the original NABU when people rented it. This guy here, I'll tell you the stories. I'm going to take this dust off here, see how much dust is on it. It says Super Stick. So when, I was talking about the Jurassic eras. I'm going to go back to that. So we had NABU Manufacturing, NABU Network, and then after we had our first layoff, which was somewhere in 1984, at the end of 1984, somewhere close to September. I can't remember the exact date. Then we moved into what I called NABU on a shoestring, where my manager, John Short, the director of content development, Les Purley, and John Kelly, and a bunch of other people, including James Gregory and Bob McNally and Richard Haas and a whole pile of other people that kept us going. James Gregory was teaching classes to schools and basically beating the drum in that one. Other people were doing sales, and Amway was introduced shortly around there. Then there was another layoff that moved it from 35, so it went from 800 to 35 to around, I think 15. One of which was, and in fact, I was laid off at that point too. And then I spent the whole summer, I had a ton of fun. I didn't even take unemployment. I had a decent war chest by that time. I was living with roommates, and it was a lot of fun. So I just took the summer off. By the close to the end of the summer, John Kelly called me up and said, "I want to have dinner with you." And I said, "Sure." And he took me to the Laurentian Club, this kind of old boys club that was on Metcalfe Street in Ottawa. And I had to wear a tie. It was one of the few times I wore a tie because I wasn't allowed in if I didn't. So, and he treated me to a wonderful dinner, and he asked me to come back as director of content development, and I did. And I tried to keep it going for a while with it. I had a couple high school students, one of which was Peter Chow, you'll hear mentioned a lot. Another one, which is Paul Huggins. He was another high school student. He was in grade 13, smart as anything, did most of the Imagic conversions. And I'd like to hear from him again. So in the last era, where NABU on it, where I was in charge, I call that NABU by a thread. And I did call it that even at that time, not to, of course, to John Kelly, but we were just hanging on. And the idea is that we had the Japanese thing going. MSX was kind of happening. There was all kinds of, John had all kinds of irons in the fire. So there was chance, but it was in the category of lottery ticket, and depression was starting to set in amongst us. So at some point when Les Purley came in, when we did the NABU on a shoestring, we didn't have any more of these joysticks. They're actually not that durable, but they're very usable. They don't last, and kids kill them. People throw them and they break off the triangle bit at the top. So we got another deal with these guys, which are super stick joysticks. I don't know exactly where they came from, but let's put together the deal. We got a big shipment of these guys for a really good price, probably just a couple bucks or something like that. And but the quality was really bad. The screws were too tight on the joystick, and the joystick had really stiff action in a way that actually disturbed us, and we knew that it wasn't going to be happy. The consumers weren't going to be happy with it. We had to take apart every last one of them that we shipped out. It was me, Les, the hardware guy, and a bunch of other people, and we took them apart. We loosened the screws, but we also sprayed silicone lubricant inside of that little ball there. See how it moves, and that helped. That basically made them shippable. But it's one of those things that, I mean, you get the delivery and you go, what do we do? Send them back, or do we start delivering them? And we decided that this was slightly easier, but boy, that was an intensive weekend. I think we did about 8,000 joysticks. It only takes like a minute to do each one, and with a bunch of people, you can get a lot done. But wow, I don't know how many we did, but we did a ton, and I was exhausted. That's all I did that weekend was fix joysticks. And yes, it's turning into a mess here. So I'd really like to get this into somebody else's hands. I'm not going to talk too much more about it, but I'm going to be using these guys. The next thing I'm going to do is set up my my NABU that's going to be connected to DJ software, and I'm going to examine it for a bit to see what I want to look for, which titles are missing. I know that I gave him what I thought was a full cycle, but it is missing. It's got many holes like Swiss cheese of applications, and I need to find them on the floppies. So that's what's next on the agenda. The audience here today has been Ollie, who didn't care, and Stanley, who's mildly interested. So I don't, and you saw Sparky at the beginning, but no other cats have made it around. So anyway, nice talking to you. As I said, kind of depressed. I want to get this stuff working, but I don't have the skill to do it, so I'm going to give it away. I'll talk to you later.